And your pens match, like in your shirt. It's the same.
It was all planned.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. Oh, are we filming right now?
Yeah. Yep. Wait for the camera.
Hi, Mom. Hi, guys. Hi. My name is Jonathan Webster. I teach in this building. All right, that's it for introductions. So my presentation's on philosophy and conformity, and that's my name. So I started, when I started putting this together, I thought it was worthwhile to at least give some sort of brief account of what philosophy is and what philosophers do. You know, at high schools, we don't offer a philosophy course, which is too bad, but it is what it is. So just so you get an idea of what the philosophical project is, it's an activity people undertake when they seek to understand fundamental truths about themselves, the world in which they live, and the relationships to the world and to each other. You guys probably have some conception of philosophy, right? Coming into this, I just didn't want to share. Would you guys like to share? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Analyzing or considering esoteric or obscure, not necessarily obscure, but questions that don't have a definite answer. It's food for thought in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I definitely think philosophy looks at questions that don't have definite answers. It's not a math class or anything like that. Does anyone else have any thoughts on philosophy? Do any of you guys ever do philosophy? Do you guys talk in class in general, or because I can just stop asking questions? Yeah.
Intimidated by you.
Do you guys want me to tell you a joke? Yeah, like lighten the mood. So this is my favorite joke. So there are these two muffins, and they're in an oven. And one muffin's like, "Boy, it's hot in here," and the other muffin says, "Ah, a talking muffin." The other muffin's terrified that the muffin's talking, but it's ironic.
You know what?
All right.
Up to an extent, that's
So let's try my question again. Now that I've loosened you guys up with my humor. Does anyone ever do philosophy like every day, at any part of the day, ever in your life?
I mean, just when we're born, just thinking of like, what if this happened? What if that happened? And there's lots of cases like that. In fact, your muffin joke there, even to an extent, that's a bit of philosophy. It's like, what would a muffin say if it encountered a talking muffin?
Yeah, because it would have to talk itself. It seems like it would have already kind of solved that problem
Yeah.
in its mind. Yeah. Yeah. But no, I like what you said, it's bored. Like when our iPhones break, we do philosophy. Yeah. Like when we can't text. Yeah. Do you guys ever, do you guys know, I put down here different branches of philosophy. Have you guys ever seen this before? Okay, I know, this, I don't know if this still is, but it used to be part of the IB curriculum. Are you guys IB students, or? Some of you might be at some point. Okay. Yeah, I know the theory of knowledge and philosophy was a part of that, at least, or maybe it still is. But philosophy is kind of broken down into 5 different branches. So just to give you a taste of the types of problems, or the areas of problems philosophers look at, there's epistemology, which is theory of knowledge. It's asking questions like, what is knowledge? How do we go about obtaining it? There's ethics, which you guys are certainly familiar with. These are questions, like, ought we do this, or should we do something? What's good or bad, right or wrong? Philosophy is definitely interested in that. Metaphysics kind of looks at questions above or outside the normal world. Religious questions would fall into metaphysics, but it's not limited to that. Logic is kind of the branch of philosophy which we use to analyze all other branches. Just reasoning skills. There's formal logic. which is kind of more like math and computer type stuff. But there's informal logic too, just how to construct a good argument, how to reason well. And there's aesthetics as well, which looks at the philosophy of what makes something beautiful. Example A. And I won't ask the question again, but I would believe that you guys engage in philosophy in some sense every day of your life. I would be willing to say that, and more than once in the day. But you guys don't have to tell me. I'll just believe that.
Well, basically, I did a theory of knowledge presentation to that earlier.
I watched it on your website,
And,
RyanEislie.com.
there it is. But also, like Bear said, well, we could relate it to language arts class to ethics, if you will. Like we constantly, in the novels that we read, there's always ethical dilemmas on what the characters are doing, why they're doing it, should they do it, was it right? We have those conversations in class. Whether or not they recognize it as philosophy,
Sure.
It's something we do in the class, for sure.
Sure. And I think there's a real everyday kind of take on philosophy, whereas something like everyone is doing all the time. And there's also a very academic type of philosophy, which you guys probably never participated in, and that's all right too. But yet, did you guys read To Kill a Mockingbird this year? Yeah. Isn't that a fantastic book? Did you guys even read it or just go to Spark Notes?
I read it.
Very good. It's fantastic. My brother and I will still talk about Atticus Finch. He's the greatest character of all time. It's like I was so impressed, English. I was so impressed with the novels I read in high school, and I still think they're amongst the best I've ever read. Just I don't know, not that I have to picture class, but that book was good. So here is your question. This is for a project that you guys are doing. This is the question I'm trying to address in this presentation. This is how important is conforming or not conforming to our world, and how do you know? This is the question that you guys are focusing on. Yes? Okay. Because if it's not, this sucks. But. So I'm going to try to take a look at how can philosophy help us to address this question. That's going to be my goal today. And if you guys have something to say, questions, just shout it out. One part of philosophy, there's a bunch of different like sub-branches or regions of philosophy. But one thing that I always think of is philosophy of language. And philosophy of language looks at the meaning of words, how do we convey meaning to one another? And I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but I think it's relevant that we figure out what exactly are we talking about when we say conformity. And you guys don't have to copy this down because I'll share this slideshow with Mr. Eislie. But I just did a Google search and I picked like the first 4 things. And these were, when I typed in conformity, these were definitions I found. Compliance with standards, rules, or laws, behavior in accordance with accepted conventions, changing one's behavior to match the responses of others, or a type of social influence involving a change of belief in behavior in order to fit in with a group. That's probably the most relevant in high school, right? No, and we're all cool. Did you guys, what do you guys think of these? Do you think they're complete? Do you think they're incomplete? Maybe taken as a whole, they each kind of be saying something a little bit different. Especially when I look at the first and the last one. Following the rules versus, changing to fit in. Those are kind of 2 different takes on conformity. So when you guys are working on your project, I hope you have a clear sense of what we mean by conforming. Because here I put up I call a very superficial look at conformity. I think this is a not interesting look at conformity. Some things that we all do that I guess are conforming. I notice we've all worn clothes today. Thank you. We're all at school today. I'm at work, and so are those other gentlemen back there. I don't know why I put this for. I knew I was in high school paying taxes. You guys don't do that yet. That's pretty cool. But obeying laws, you guys are probably confronted with this too. Getting close to being able to drive those stop signs. They're not optional. I just saw a police officer giving a seatbelt ticket yesterday. Right? That's what I presume he was doing. He was standing on Sashbaugh. I felt like he was looking. I was wearing my seatbelt. I was good. But obeying laws, this is something that I think most of us agree upon. We speak a common language. We're conforming in that sense. This would be a very weird day if we weren't talking the same thing. And A, we all eat, sleep, and breathe. I see you breathing over there, conformist. Yeah. Again, these are things. There are some things. I think if we take a very superficial look at conformity, there are some things we are all doing, and it's not because we have to. But I mean, there's a class of things that we generally agree are worth doing. Like I said, clothes, breathing, etc. I think there's a more everyday way of looking at conformity too. One that probably confronts you guys more frequently. Yeah, that's The Breakfast Club. And again, I knew I was doing this to high school kids, and I picked an 80s movie. Have any of you guys ever seen this? Oh, awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Back in the 80s, like who you were was very clear. We have Jock and Smart Nerdy Kid and Burnout and Weirdo and Pretty Popular Girl. That was the 80s. Clearly defined lines. Yeah. But you know, like there are some real issues with conformity. Again, that we deal with every day. Your appearance. Like some of you guys, no one in here, might rock a pink mohawk. And some of you guys, I tend to go a little more conservative with my haircut. But the clothes you wear, the styles that you wear say a lot. You know, the band T-shirts, the skater T-shirts, the button-up collar shirts tucked in. I mean, these are choices of conformity that you do have to make, and that do set you apart in some way. The way you talk. Like, what words do you use? Do you construct your sentences and try to use as many big words as possible and sound really smart? Or are you one of those people that drop an F but can't make a sentence without saying the F word? You know those people, right? Yeah, it's like a verb and an adjective. You know what I'm talking about. You know what you guys are like, yeah, like these are choices. And again, like my sentence structure is in a way conforming to my job. I can't be that guy that's throwing out curse words all the time. Like that, I wouldn't get to talk to you today. Yeah. But you guys have that choice, and this is again a way that you guys can kind of shape yourselves in different models. The way you behave, you know, how do you treat other people? Do you follow rules? And I mean, it doesn't have to be like, dude, I don't murder anyone, so I'm cool. I'm saying, like, you know, teacher says no cell phone. Do you put it away, or do you, like, you know, I'm done with my work. I play by my own, beat to my own drum. You know, are you that kind of person or not? Your work ethic. Do you guys work really hard in your classes? Do you work really hard at home, or do you guys say, I got a D-? These get degrees. And how you treat other people too. These are choices, again, in conformity that I think are a little more practical, a little bit more everyday. If we're going to analyze conformity, and again, from kind of a philosophy of language perspective, what do we mean by conformity? Hopefully we don't mean these superficial things. Maybe we mean these more everyday things. Or maybe we even mean bigger picture things. I don't know if you guys have hopes and dreams. I presume you do. But what are they? You don't have to shout them out. But what are they? How does that conform to the people you've interacted with? How does that fit in to your culture? We live in Clarkston, Michigan, white suburbia, middle America. You know what I mean? Like USA, America. You know, like how is that shaped? Really, like what you hope and dream about. My dreams, by the way, I pretend I'm a ninja. And like bad guys come into the school, and like I save the day. Like, that's just a little bit about me. So like if that happens, don't worry, you're welcome. I've already got that taken care of.
I'm less a ninja and more like Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
I like dressed in black, but I like
Steven Seagal doesn't take a hit, and I like that. If you guys haven't seen a Seagal movie, ask your parents first because they're R-rated, but then rock it out. Your religious beliefs. What are they? And again, I'm not asking you to shout it out, but you know, from the lens or the perspective, thinking about conformity, how do your religious beliefs fall in line to those around you? and to the culture that we live in here in Clarkston. What does it mean to be you? What is your picture of self? And how has that been shaped by other people, by your family, by your friends, by your community? And what's the meaning of your life? What's it all about? Not that you have to have the answers to these questions, but it's worthwhile to think about this. And really, I think you'd be surprised. It would be a good exercise to just kind of put that into perspective of where did these ideas come from. If you hope to be rich, that's your dream, that's whatever a lot of people do, how is that shaped by your culture? So to what extent have others shaped your answers to these questions? That's kind of the big question I want to ask. And so when you're doing your project in conformity, again, like, how are we treating conformity? On what sense? On what scale? I thought so I'm doing my presentation on philosophy, and I thought the best way to address this would be through existentialism. And I don't know if you guys know what existentialism is, but if you've heard of it, it's kind of a big topic, lots of ideas. But I thought this would be really relevant to the topic of conformity. It's a philosophy that emphasizes individual existence. You're a person, you're an individual, and you care about your life. That is the human condition. We care about what happens to us. And not because we're super important, some people might be, but we're important to ourselves because you're you, because you're me, you know what I mean? This is a big idea. Freedom. We're agents in our life. Free will is real, and that's scary sometimes, but we are free to choose anything we want to do. We're not subjected to deterministic or fatalist reality where whatever happens is out of my control anyways. And the choices we make are a reflection and definition of who we are, which can also be kind of scary too. Because when you mess up, you can't push it off on someone else. You can't say it's someone else's fault. Existentialism also believes that humans, the people, define their own meaning in life. We're the sole creators of what's important to us. And it's really important that we reflect on that. Because without understanding what's important to us, it's hard to understand our decisions and the choices we're making. Because we make decisions based on what's important to us. Sometimes rational decisions, sometimes we throw rationality out the window. It's overridden by something more important.
The big French existentialist?
Sartre.
What's that?
Camus, Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the hardest reading I think I've ever done.
Yeah, we were just talking about No Exit yesterday. This play. And,
Yeah. I struggled significantly trying to wrap my head around. And I think one of the big misinterpretations of existentialism, which people try to pawn off on existentialism, the idea that like God is dead, like there's no like deity, and so life has no meaning. When really it's the opposite, that there is no deity, that we have the right to assign our own meaning to life, and it works.
I considered that quite a bit in preparing this, the idea, and I didn't want to bring up, I made a conscious choice not to address religion in this, because existentialism does get a bad rap, not necessarily a bad rap, but it's a lot of atheist-driven philosophers, but that's not the entirety of the case. Kierkegaard, for example, one of the first philosophers that was considered existentialist, was primarily concerned with his relationship with God. And I was talking about making choices. We try to make rational choices, but sometimes what's important to us is more important than that. He talked about the story of Abraham and Isaac. And I don't know if you guys know this story from the Bible. It's not important if you don't. God told Abraham to take his kid up to the mountain and kill his son, sacrifice his son. Like, who in their right mind would do that? Could you picture your mom or dad coming up to you like, oh, time to die? You're out of your mind. But God told it, and so it was this idea of, like, this is more important to me than than rational choice. And he had a whole book about it. But yeah, and I think existentialism too, as far as religious beliefs goes, because we're free to make our own decisions on the meaning of our life, we're free to push that meaning onto anything we want, be it God. I've talked to more than one parent who believes their meaning in life is their children. Everything I do is for my kids so they have a great life. That can be fine too. It's up to you what you choose. It doesn't have to be an atheist philosophy. But yeah, it does get that rap because so many of the philosophers were atheists. And so this is how I wanted to tie this to conformity. One of the concerns in existentialism is becoming an authentic person, being yourself in a very true sense, which seems to address very directly the issue of conformity. And we got to understand that most, if not all, of what we do is a reaction to what we've seen. We've learned a lot of our behavior from other people. Like my life, I'm sure you could find somebody in the world who has a life not very dissimilar to mine, and attitudes not very dissimilar to mine, and make choices not very dissimilar to mine. There's not much that you guys can do anymore that hasn't been done. Now, there's creative ways to play with this, but when you think about conformity, like the bigger picture items, like which religion to select, or what meaning does my life hold? Like somebody else probably has that already. There's a good chance of it. We can't escape our culture, our upbringing, the community, the friends, the family that we have, but we can determine our place in it. I think one of the things about becoming authentic and relating this to conformity is if I do something and it's something someone else is already doing, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm conforming or copying them, provided that it is who I really am. I love to play Magic the Gathering. There are millions of people that play that game. I don't know that I would say I'm conforming to anything. I really feel like I found part of myself that I love playing this game. You know what I'm saying? You guys feel that way about stuff? I love my dogs. It's a true story. When they die, I will cry for days. There are other people that love dogs. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not being disingenuous by loving dogs. It's not like I'm conforming to people love dogs, so I like dogs. That's me. That's who I am. You know what I mean? And I've discovered that through my life. I can't go deer hunting because I think I'd cry if I shot a deer. I know, it's funny. It's all right. Yeah, it's true. So why is becoming this authentic person important? Well, because it can lead us to a content life. Not necessarily happy. I'm happy when I find $1 on the floor. Like, dude, I just doubled my salary for the week. But I get it. I'm content when I find the owner of it, and return it. There's contentment. There's a satisfaction about being the person that you are and that you want to be. And I think that's what existentialism has to offer this conversation. So, but yes, so this requires a great amount of self-reflection and intentionality. We have to be deliberate in our choices. We have to be aware of what choices we're making, deliberate in making them. What do you guys think? Groovy? Awesome. So, there was a philosopher that is credited for saying that the unexamined life is not worth living. You guys ever heard this? No? You guys ever heard that? It's a famous saying, yeah. Well, I was going to ask you who is it, but you don't even know the saying. Let me tell you who it is. It's this guy, Socrates, or according to Bill and Ted, Socrates. Yeah, my references aren't hitting today. So I want to tell you guys about the story of Socrates. And what I want to do is I'm actually going to give you 2 stories. I've selected philosophers because that seemed appropriate, given that this talk was about philosophy. But I've selected 2 philosophers that I want to kind of give you the story of their life, or a part of their life, to kind of see their take and maybe reflect on it in the lens or the scope of conformity. So Socrates, he's an old dude. 2,500 years ago, he was born. All right, just in case you guys aren't good at math, we count down to 0, and then we start counting up again. Okay. So this is if you like timelines, that's -470. All All right. He lived in Athens. He was cool. He ran around, did stuff. Okay. So he was the son of a stonemason, which I mean that's whatever. But the big idea is his family wasn't wealthy, and in that time, not terribly unlike now, although now it's a little bit different. But wealthy people had the money and the resources to pursue any endeavor they wanted to. If you wanted to become a painter, you would hire someone to teach you to paint. If you wanted to become a philosopher, you would hire somebody to hire a sophist to teach you how to reason and to teach you the writings of different philosophers. But if you weren't wealthy, you got your dad's job. Why? Because they can't pay no one, so he's going to teach you what he knows. And so Socrates became a stonemason for a while, and that was great. And he did some stuff, and he married a woman. And the woman, according to the writing, they don't talk much about his wife, but they said she was undesirable, whatever that means. He married an undesirable woman and had 3 sons that he really never had much to do with, according to his own words. I put fugly up there. Do you guys know what that means? It means really ugly. He was not a looker. He was a weird-looking dude. He was weird in nature. I mean, just the way he acted. He didn't wear shoes. Like, that was weird at the time. Just like now, if someone walked around the high school with no shoes on, that's a weird dude. Or girl. I didn't mean to leave anyone out, but yeah, he's just an odd man. I don't know that he was just an odd man. But he was hardcore. He served in the military. Why? Because he had to. It was law in Athens that any able-bodied male from ages 18 to 60 had to serve in the military. 60. Oh man, I'm so glad the draft ended at 26 or 27. Oh yeah, it's the only good part about getting old, I suppose. But yeah. So and this was relevant too because there was a war that happened in his lifetime. They were fighting Sparta and they lost, which was bad. But he served in the infantry. The armored infantry was known as the hoplite. You guys ever heard this term before? I know it from Magic the Gathering, no big deal. I took a picture up here of what a hoplite looked like. They had this cool shield. They carried a spear. They had some armor, those cool hats that you guys have probably seen before with the feathers. The skirts, that's part of it too. The hoplite would line up in large ranks, and they would stand there with their shields and their spears, and they would fight, and when one went down, the one behind them stepped forward, and that's how they did battle. It was pretty sweet. Socrates was apparently a very good warrior. He was known for courage and fearlessness during battle. He saved this really popular general. He saved his life, which was a big deal. The general was charged with the crime in Athens, fled to Sparta after this too, so that's kind of a sad story. He ended up coming back later, but I forget his name, I apologize. But yeah, so Socrates was pretty tough. He was in the army, he did some cool stuff. Now, those days are over. He comes back to Athens, and he decides, I'm not being a stonemason. I'm just going to wander the streets and bust people's chops. Walk around, grilling people, asking them what they know. I don't know if you guys have ever met anyone like this. If you guys imagine going to the supermarket and some guy just starts questioning you. What are you doing? I'm going shopping. Why? I don't know. We need food. Well, why is that important? Leave me alone, guy. I'm calling the police. But that's what he'd do. He'd sit around the market, the town square, and he would question people, wealthy people, and the common man. He liked to find experts or people that thought they were experts at different things. Question them about what it means to hold certain political views, certain religious views. You'd ask questions like, what does it mean to be pious? He'd ask the holy man that. What does it mean to be courageous? He'd ask military people that. And what he would do, you guys are familiar with the Socratic method, yes? My understanding, the English classes you do like Socratic seminars. Yeah, I've never observed one in Clarkson High School, but I hear they're great.
They start off pretty bad, but they get better.
Yeah, by the end of the year, they're pretty good. But yeah, his method was one. He would say he knew nothing. So he'd go to a strong, brave warrior, and he'd say, "Look, guy, I don't know anything about courage. Tell me about it." And the guy would try to, "Oh, courage is this," and he'd be like, "Oh, really? Well, what about this?" And kind of challenge that view. And they'd go back and forth, and Socrates would end up showing that this guy some of the more mundane ideas that people think they know for sure, this guy didn't really have a firm grasp on. He's known for saying the only thing that I know is that I know nothing at all. He thought he was wise in acknowledging that he didn't have all these answers, and he was I don't think necessarily trying to be a jerk, but he would see these people who said they did have the answers, and he'd ask them, I want that knowledge, share it with me. And ultimately, they were unsuccessful in giving it to him. That was his method. He made a lot of friends that way. He actually did have some admirers. When I was writing this, I was thinking about Tosh.0. You guys ever watch Tosh.0? You watch that guy, and so I imagine the admirers. It's like watching Tosh.0. Tosh will rip on some dude just relentlessly. And at home, watching on the TV, I'll be laughing, like, that guy's awesome. But picture what it's like to be that guy. Like, I hate Tosh.0. Like, that guy's awful. Like, I would never want to hang out with Tosh. He would be the biggest jerk. Watching his show is one thing, and it's funny. But being interrogated by him, being grilled by him, like, there's nothing fun about that. So some of the people really did admire him. Like I said, a lot of the young people looked up to him. They'd follow him around, watch him talk to these people. They'd learn from him. But a lot of people really hated him too, especially the people he was grilling. He made a lot of enemies that way. So they charged him. We're done with your crap, buddy. You're going on trial. And this is pretty cool. So he was charged with heresy. Do you guys know what that is? Yeah, oh, did you say something?
Yeah, isn't it like defying the government?
Close. Yeah. Oh, I thought that was an elbow raise. It's going against the Orthodox religious beliefs. So heresy has been a crime throughout centuries. In Rome, they liked Zeus and like Athena and Apollo and whatever. And Socrates wasn't on board with that. He had religious views. But he didn't believe in those gods. So they hit him with that. And also with corrupting the youth. Now, there's a number of reasons for this to happen. Like I said, there was a war that Socrates fought and that a lot of people fought and that they lost. Sparta won. It was in the 450 BCE-ish. So Sparta came in. They instilled their own government. They put 30 men in charge. They were called the 30 tyrants, and they ran the city until like 403 BC. So right up to this happening, these guys were in charge. They weren't on board with Athens' religious beliefs, and they weren't on board with democracy. So when they finally got them out of there, it was a pretty fragile place. And Socrates was speaking out against the gods. He was speaking out against democracy. He didn't think people should be in charge of government. He thought there were a lot of dumb people out there. He thought some smart people should be involved, making all the choices with their benevolence and helping everyone out. So these were ideas that definitely weren't popular at the time. And to put icing on the cake, like a lot of the youth, a lot of his students that followed him around, they rebelled against the government just a couple years before this. So everyone's like, we're done with Socrates, we're putting him on trial. Okay. So he gets there and he defends himself, corrupting the youth. I was just asking questions. Get off my case. But they're like, no, you're guilty. They voted. 501 people voted, and the vote was fairly close. 30 votes, from one way or the other. The vote was very close. But what's cool in Athens, what's kind of cool in Athens, is the defense would propose a penalty, and the prosecution would say, this is the penalty we think you should get. In this case, the prosecution said Socrates has to die. Now, Socrates was able to propose an alternate defense, an alternate punishment. And imagine you're on trial, and you did something, and they're like, all right, you get the death sentence, or propose another sentence. You'd be like, well, can I do community service? Can I just serve 90 days? Or, don't kill me. Whatever I did, don't kill me. You try to, just, please, mercy, mercy. Not Socrates. Socrates says, you know what? I was doing you guys a favor. What should happen? I should get to eat at this mansion where all the Olympic athletes eat and stay. I should get to be, that should be my punishment. And you guys should give me some money, too. That would be just great. And so the people were so pissed when he said this that they sentenced him to die. People who voted him innocent said, you have to die. That's how mad he made them. That's the kind of guy he was, yeah. So that was the trial. He has to die now. So I don't know that anyone really saw this happen. You know, they just wanted him out there. Everyone expected him to flee Athens. It was somewhat, I hate to say, like standard practice, but it wasn't uncommon for people to just bribe guards to get him out there. And they could have done that for Socrates. They could have bribed the guards. He would have had to leave Athens and just go somewhere else, and that would have been the end of it. And he had a lot of wealthy friends who would have paid, offered to pay. And this is kind of a cool story for a guy like Socrates that has always been against the grain, kind of always the nonconformist, to bring it back to the big picture. He said, no, I'm not leaving. You know, I've lived in Athens my whole life. I love Athens. I've abided by its rules for 70 years. He was 70 years old. And I'm not going to stop now. What would that say about me? How could I live with myself if I did that? And so he stayed. And he let them kill him. The way they died at the time, the way that they carried out these sentences, was hemlock. It was a poison. And you drank it. And it wasn't slow. And it wasn't painless. It took a while. It shuts down the central nervous system. From what I understand, from the bottom up. You like lose control of your legs, and then once it gets to your heart, over. So he drank the hemlock. There's a picture of him. His friends pleading with him, like, dude, let's get out of here. He's like, no, it's hemlock time. So 399 BC, he dies. And so that's kind of the tale of a very abridged tale of Socrates. But I want you to think, maybe, how does the story of Socrates make us think about conformity? I have another story to tell you. This is one of my favorite stories in philosophy. And this is one of my favorite stories of all time. This is better than any story. You're going to love this story. Especially that kid that's sleeping right there. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. This dude, Edmund Gettier. He was a 20th century philosopher. Born in the United States. Looking at the Great Depression, went to Cornell, smart dude, got his PhD in philosophy, got a job at Wayne State. You guys know where that is? Yeah, it's right down the road. All right, it's in Detroit. He got a job at Wayne State. And he taught there for, I think he got the job, I don't know, a couple of years before this happened. But he taught there for a couple of years. And I don't know if you guys know this, but professors are required to do research. And it depends on what institution you're at. Like in a community college, professors are there just to teach. At some really higher ed places, professors are pretty much hired just to do research, and they get stuck with a class here and there that TAs mostly run. Some of the middle level schools is kind of in between. Like I know I went to CMU. The professors were primarily teaching, but they did do research as well. So it was more on the teaching side, but either way, philosophy, and if you're a science person, you did science research. If you're a philosophy person, you wrote papers. You thought about stuff, you wrote it down. So he's required to publish, like there's for your contract, you're required to make so many publications. This is still true. You're required to publish. And Gettier says, no, Daddy, don't write papers. I'm not playing ball with this at all. And he was right. I'm not doing it. I don't want to contribute this way. I want to teach. But his friends, his colleagues said, dude, just throw something together and get it done. So he did. He wrote a 3-page paper. Could you imagine like writing a 3-page papers for Eislie's class when the assignment was, submit something meaningful? Like here's some crap. It's not even 3 pages that he wrote. This is a copy of his paper. This is the next article. So it's like 2.5 pages. And there's a big title up there too. So he just threw something together. And he submitted it to some philosophical journal in South America. like Venezuela philosophy today. I don't know, you know, and just whatever. I've done my thing. It's over. And this paper changed the way we look at epistemology forever. It's one of the most significant papers of all time. And I tell you this story, there's a little bit more I'll tell you too, but I tell you this story because I thought it would appeal to you guys. From a conformist perspective, he did what he was told to do, and we can think about that. But from a you guys perspective, like I have many of you in class, you guys are really lazy. I thought you would like the idea that this guy just whatever pumped out this paper and it was great. Maybe not. What time does class end, by the way? Okay, so just to give you a sense of what this paper was about, because I know in theory of knowledge that was something that was a part of the IB program in the past. I don't know if it still is. It was a separate class before, right?
Yeah, it's integrated into writing arts.
Okay. Well, one of the ways, I said epistemology is to look at what is knowledge, how do we go about obtaining it. Way back, after Socrates was Plato, so we're talking, negative years in the timeline, Plato said knowledge was justified true belief. In order to know something, you had to believe it's true, and you had to have justification for it, and it had to actually be true. Justified true belief. All right. This theory lasted thousands of years until in 1963, Edmund Gettier came out of Wayne State, forced to write a paper, and in 2.5 pages shattered it. Said that was that can't be true. And he proposed a series of what are now called Gettier counterexamples. This is in its entirety is called the Gettier problem, but demonstrated that justified true belief cannot be true. And if we can come back to talking about this if you guys want, if we have more time. But the paper was awesome. I don't know if you guys like reading stuff or learning stuff. If you did, you would dig this. It was freaking awesome. Like I said, so this guy, 3-page paper, volumes were written in response to this. Books upon books upon books. You cannot talk about epistemology without referencing Edmund Gettier and at least attempting to solve his problem that he laid out in 2.5 pages. Once he did this, he got a sweet job on Massachusetts. Professor Emeritus, that is, I don't know if you guys know much about college, there's like a hierarchy of professors. There's like associate professor and full professor. I don't know what all they are. This one's up there. It's pretty good. Got a great job, and they never asked him to write another paper because he said he doesn't write papers. Is that sweet or what? And I tell that story too because, I don't know, I think it offers some perspective on our question of conformity. Gettier played the ball. Look what happened. So, to kind of wrap up the talk and bring it back to the original question, I'd like you to think about whether or not we ever actually really conform. Do you believe that's the case, or do you believe it's the case that it's impossible not to conform? Or maybe does the truth lie somewhere in the middle? And from the existentialist lens, if we're really our authentic selves, does the issue of conformity even matter? That's my presentation.
I want to do a couple things.
Yeah.
I sure want to come back together because I want kind of a summary of what it is. But can we have them, since we have time, right? What time?
I got 31.
31. Just turn to the person next to you or groups of 3 or whatever, someone behind you or whatever. Discuss a portion of these questions really quickly, just 2 or 3 minutes, and then I want to hear from the class to get some perspective up there on where you see the answer.
Or it shouldn't. I mean, like it does.
Thank you.
started it. We started like big, and then I had to go back to like some of the text that like philosophy for dummies. Overview of what philosophy is, and what people have said, and then branch out to like actual books by philosophers. You know, like
One of them is so general and basic, I didn't think it was going to be too useful. So technical, I wouldn't have been able to finish the sentence without looking up at least 2 words.
that one, what's the name? Say it again from the French one. We're like, it started off with, hey, it's a short book of what I was reading. And it's like first third. I'm like, all right, I got it, kind of. You know, and then like it started this new chapter. Now, like I was reading, I'm like, what? And I reread it. Look stuff up and then think about it. I'm like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. Like, I don't know. I must have missed something in the first third and I help me understand the second third. I gave up. I returned to the library. I'm not that far yet. I can't do it. So what was like in summary? How did he deny?
He gave cases where you have just mentioned belief, but it's not.
Like, give me an example.
Why do they do that?
Like say you're watching TV and the Tigers are playing and they win. Well, now it's position. So you make the statement that I know the Tigers are you're justified in it. It's true. Because in fact you did win. You believe it. So you met the criteria. But let's say unbeknownst to you, that you had actually played yesterday. They also won. By happenstance, they won today too. So your propositional knowledge statement still is mental criteria, but it would be difficult to say. And so, like, so what philosophers do now is, I mean, they either reject whether or not justified true belief is ever really a thing, or they have to add some sort of fourth criteria to it. And there have been a number of attempts. Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah.
All right, really quickly. Let's hear from a few people on what you attempted to talk about and answer and what you guys talked about. Actually, go ahead.
All right. Well, we kind of talked about does conformity even matter if you're being like your true self? And I said like it shouldn't, but in the society you live in, it does.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's just because of the pure fact that everybody always judges each other. Like that's basically all we ever do. So I mean, if you're being your true self and you don't agree, and like your own morals or your own true self doesn't agree with that, then it's going to be
Others.
We talked about how you're always going to conform in a sense because there's voluntary and involuntary conformity. Like you said, breathing. Like you just kind of have to do that. And then there's like voluntary conformity, which is more in the middle, where you can decide what you're going to conform to.
Talking about how being authentic and the issue of conformity, it comes down to how much of what makes you you is about conformity. Because I said if you are truly being authentic, then the issue of conformity doesn't matter. But there's really no way to define how much of what makes you you is because, like you said, you can't escape the community, you can't escape what's around you. So everything that makes you you is undeniably affected by everything and everyone around you. So it gets into this kind of area where you don't really know the difference between authenticity and conformity because they're completely intertwined in that you conform and that becomes who you are, or you don't conform and that also becomes who you are.
So, we were talking about the first one, and we were kind of thinking there was kind of like levels of conformity, like you were talking about how there's like superficial and like we all wear clothes today, and that got me thinking about like I don't think there's really a possible way for someone to fully be on either side of conforming or not.
Something that we kind of talked about was that like we believe that was kind of impossible to escape conformity because when you're raised, like when you're little, like the beliefs that you're raised with, like they end up becoming your core beliefs. And even when you, for example, move to like someplace new, like let's say that like they believe in a watermelon god or something like that. If you believe in a deity or if you're an atheist, like that's still what you believe in
Me and Shane were talking about like being a conformist is basically like agreeing with ideas that are impressed upon you by other people. And so if I feel like you're being authentic, then a lot of your likes or dislikes are not impressed upon you by other people. Like you don't do it because other people do it.
I think that's dead on.
And the notion to hard and fast conform or not conform is logistically impossible because there's arguments with more than one side, and if you agree and conform with one side, you are inherently disagreeing and not conforming to another.
I think you can also get into the idea, especially in the second question, with one of the first things he talked about as far as looking at words and what's the philosophy behind words. What biases do you bring to the language of the term conformity? Some of you may be raised culturally at home or in whatever small circles you're in that conforming is bad, that you need to stand out, be an individual and be yourself. But is that really just not conforming? Is that just you're actually being taught to be authentic versus conformity and non-conformity? So mixing terms becomes an issue if you don't really have a clear definition. The same thing goes with the term matter. Does the issue of conformity even matter? Well, what matters to you might not matter to someone else, and our subjective value that we place on things that matter, I think has a big effect on whether or not we even see something being authentic within the same question. So, any last thoughts? Good job again today, guys. Go ahead and thank Mr. Webster again.